Shalom. So, the Mumbai massacre. What happened? Well, you had Muslim terrorists, although the New York Times refuses to call them terrorists, who didn't just happen upon a Jewish house. They methodically stalked it and planned it. In fact, they posed as tourists. They identity theft. They stole the identity to pretend to be tourists here and took the hospitality of this wonderful young couple who were just trying to create outreach and hospitality in the Jewish community, and then they come back later and they murder in cold blood this young couple. And they also stayed in a hotel for a while and stalked out and knew every inch of that hotel, and then they go to that hotel and kill people. So what's our response to this? Well, I'm recording this in the week in which the Jewish people read Vayetze, when Jacob had just stolen the identity of his brother in last week's Torah portion to fool his father, to get a blessing he didn't deserve, perhaps. And then, of course, his brother's mad, his father's mad, so he flees. And this week he's lonely and young and immature and made a big mistake. And he has a dream of a ladder that goes from the ground to the heaven, and there are angels up and down on this ladder. And he awakens with a religious consciousness, and he said, God was in this place. How awesome is this place? God is here, and I didn't know it. There's a wonderful book by Rabbi Lawrence Kushner based on that verse. God is in this place, and I didn't know it, which you can order. And in that book, he gives you 7 different interpretations of that verse. And I'll just tell you a couple. One, Rashi, who basically said that for whatever reason, Jacob was unprepared to see the miracle of life. Couldn't see the big picture of where God was already there. He just couldn't see it until he was ready to see it. And then he quotes the Kutzker Rebbe, a Hasidic Rebbe, who basically said the reason why Jacob couldn't see God until that point was because his ego got in the way. Now, what are some of the other interpretations of the story, before we go into the Mumbai massacre, about the ladder? Well, one view would be that the ladder links the real world to the heavens, that they can't de-link them, that God is very interested and concerned about what happens in this world. Another idea, since it's a ladder, is that the concept of Ma'alot B'Kodesh, that you want to go up in holiness. And so when you have this ladder, you say, okay, the earth represents that which is not always holy, like mass murderers going in and randomly killing a young couple and 150 plus 170 other people. But we want to ascend the ladder in holiness to make a more peaceful world, the messianic world. Now, what about the angels going up and down? Well, a couple interpretations. One could be that shows you that there are ups and downs in life. And all of the statements and the eulogies talk about how sad and tragic the story is, yet how we can't let it destroy us. We have to let it ennoble us and educate us and give us courage to go face the future. In fact, another young couple is heading right out to India to reestablish that home. It's interesting this happens just a few weeks before Hanukkah, because the word Hanukkah means rededication, and it's about rededication of the ancient temple in 165 BCE or 164 BCE, just like they're going to rededicate this Chabad house in India, in Mumbai, that these terrorists inflicted this damage. Now, so what do we say? What is our response? Well, of course, we grieve with the families of the dead. We say to ourselves, we can't let it discourage us. Of course, we live in a world where there's real evil. This is just before December 7th, Pearl Harbor, the unprovoked attack by the Japanese on our fleet, killing thousands of people. And think about 9/11, last major attack of terrorists in the United States. I just saw a poll of Muslims in 10 countries said that 13.5% of those polled said that 9/11 was largely justified. Now, that may not seem like a big number, but when you have 100 billion and a half people, you're talking about 200 million people who believe, if you extrapolate the data, who believe that it was largely justified to take planes and fly them into buildings to kill as many people innocent as you could. Now, you should see my video on Islam, because I think Islam, in its theoretical basis, is a religion of peace. But where are the other 900 million Muslims in the world decrying violence, saying terrorism is against God's will, that this is sinful, that the killing of innocent people is never justified, and this is horrible? Now, I think we have to be aware that in the United Nations there's a movement to say that complaining about a religion or saying anything bad about a religion is a crime. It's going to be Big Brother, and all the pundits say this is directed against being able to say anything about Islam, even when Muslim terrorists go on and kill people innocently. But the major message is that we can't let this discourage us. The Chief Rabbi of Israel said that in his eulogy. I think we also have to, even though this is an attack against the Jewish people, I don't think the Muslims said we're going to go after Chabad specifically. We have to step back for a minute and say that we have to admire these people, the Chabadniks, who dress differently than everybody else, who go to remote places, who say they're going to stay there their whole life. One of the first things they do is buy graves in the place they're going. And they try and build a Jewish community there, sticking to their views, even in a sea of people where they're not accepted. And that kind of firmness is the firmness that we need to live in this world and say we're going to stand up to terrorism, we're going to stand up to violence, stand up to murder. And we're not going to let these people be violent.